Hello everyone, Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. I'm going to play the entirety of the video and then I'll go back and talk about things that are going on and talk about things that I think that were done right and or done wrong. Without further ado, here we go.
Hello, I'm Captain Gaiman, Commander of the Sheriff's Office Professional Standards Division. We're here today to provide our community information regarding a critical incident which occurred in Sacramento County and involved Sheriff's Office personnel. Today you will learn about different procedures the Sheriff's Office utilizes in order to investigate cases involving use of force, obtain and preserve relevant evidence, and evaluate each individual incident. Please keep in mind the Sheriff's Office takes the use of force by any employee very seriously. We conduct thorough investigations to ensure that the actions taken by all personnel are within the procedural standards of the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office and in compliance with state law. We are still in the early stages of this investigation, and our understanding of the facts and circumstances may change as we review more evidence and interview additional witnesses. The information contained within this video is based on what we know right now. Please note, we do not draw any conclusions based solely upon this video as to whether or not our employee acted within policy or state law. Our conclusions, rather, are based on the totality of the evidence that we have gathered at the time the investigation has been completed. We hope the content of this video serves as an educational tool for our community to promote the development of understanding and transparency within the communities we serve.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sergeant Rod Grassman, Public Information Officer for the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office. Today, we're going to show you an overview of an incident which occurred in Sacramento County on Friday, January 15th, 2021. You will hear some of the original calls from citizens to the Sheriff's Office Communication Center, coupled with radio traffic and private surveillance video, as well as audio from our ShotSpotter system. ShotSpotter is a gun detection technology that captures audio and the location of gunfire and sends an alert to our communication center. Deputies are then dispatched to the location to investigate further. When a police officer uses force to arrest, gain control of a suspect, or defend against an attack, it can be difficult to watch. Some of the video you are about to see contains strong language in addition to graphic content, which may be disturbing to sensitive viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. We will start by providing you with background information regarding exactly what led up to the incident. On January 15th, 2021, at approximately 6:26 p.m., the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office Communications Center received a 5-round ShotSpotter activation from the Sun Valley Apartments located at the 4700 block of 50th Avenue. At 6:27 p.m., our communications center received an 18-shot round activation, and at 6:28, our communications center received a 22-round activation. Moments later, we started to receive several 911 calls reporting shots fired.
911, where's your emergency?
Yeah, I'm here. There's people yelling their shot. I saw crowds of people running opposite directions, at least 30 shots.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to find a call. Looks like we already have something. What's your name? And how many did you hear?
At least 30. It sounded like a couple of high-powered rifles.
And can you tell where it came from?
Yeah, out front of building 100.
Okay, so you need to get stuff out of your car. So I'm not sure if they'll let you do that.
So building
They're yelling out there that I'm hit. Somebody's yelling they're hit.
I don't want you to go outside, but do you see anybody out
we're
there?
actually hiding in the bathroom because there's I couldn't identify anybody when I saw just groups of people. I opened my door when I first heard it, and there was people running everywhere, ducking, and yeah, it's pretty chaotic. At least 2 or 3 AKs or ARs.
Okay. You said that, was that based on what you heard or that somebody said that?
I heard it, and I've been dealing with weapons my whole life. So.
And so you think it was an AK-47?
Definitely something with extended rounds, high-powered rifle for sure.
Sheriff's Emergency.
Hi, I just want to report a whole bunch of gunshots.
And where is this happening at?
4719 50th Avenue.
4719 50th Avenue. Okay, what is your name?
We just heard, it was probably like a group of people. At first it was just like 5 gunshots, and then a whole bunch of other gunshots started going off after.
Okay. And how long ago did the first 5 occur?
Like less than 5 minutes ago, yeah.
Sheriff's Department, what's the emergency?
There was shots fired in the back buildings here, and I was just driving in, and a white car almost hit me, speeding out.
Deputies arrived within 3 minutes but were unable to locate any shooters. However, they located multiple shell casings in the parking lot. After reviewing apartment surveillance footage, deputies saw a large group talking in the parking lot. There appears to be a disagreement between several of the individuals in that group that leads to a physical fight and culminates into 9 people shooting indiscriminately into a crowd that included children. Pay particular attention to the man in the red hat and blue jacket. He is the shooter. Here he is seen kicking a man's face during a fight. This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight. Here he is seen grabbing a child while in possession of a firearm. The surveillance footage showed the initial shooter and an adult male leaving the scene in a silver Kia Soul. The silver Kia Soul was determined to be a rental car and tracked to an apartment located in Carmichael near Ranger Way and Rampart Drive. A detective sergeant and a detective arrived at the apartment complex in separate, unmarked vehicles wearing their tactical uniforms. This photo was taken the day of the incident. Due to the undercover use of these vehicles, they do not have in-car cameras. What you're about to see is a reenactment of what occurred. Detectives immediately saw the silver Kia Soul parked in the stall. While conducting surveillance, they observed the same 2 male subjects matching the description of the subjects seen in the surveillance video, placing items into the silver Kia Soul. Moments later, the subjects got into a blue vehicle, fearing that they still may be armed and in imminent danger to the public if a pursuit were to occur. The sergeant initiated a vehicle stop. The sergeant pulled directly in front of the suspect vehicle and initiated his blue and red overhead and grille lights. He exited his vehicle with his weapon drawn and said, "Sheriff's office, show me your hands. Sheriff's office, show me your hands." Both of the subjects in the vehicle complied by placing their hands in the air. Moments later, the detective arrived and parked his vehicle on the driver's side of the suspect vehicle at an approximately 45-degree angle and began talking to the driver. While the sergeant was engaging the suspect in the passenger seat, the detective yelled, "Gun, gun, gun," indicating that the driver of the vehicle had a gun. The suspect shot the detective, immediately exited the vehicle with his gun in hand while the detective returned fire. The sergeant also engaged the suspect in gunfire. The detective stumbled backwards, fell onto the ground near the rear of the suspect vehicle while continuing the gunfight. While on the ground, the suspect attempted to retrieve his gun, and the detective shot additional rounds at the suspect to stop the threat.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Copy, Gang 2 Sam, shots fired.
Gang 2 Sam, I need code 3 fire. I have a detective that has been hit. Suspect is down.
Copy, detective hit suspect down. Units CPR clear for Gang 2 Sam, Ranger and Rampart.
Information, District 1, we have shots fired. Ranger, Way, and Rampart in District 2.
Still have one other suspect at gunpoint. I have one suspect down. Gun is still by him. He's still at gunpoint. He's still breathing. I need code 3 fire for my detective and another one for the suspect that shot.
A patrol sergeant arrives on scene and runs to pull the shot detective to safety while the detective sergeant deals with the passenger. The passenger, who had a firearm in his waistband, remained in the vehicle and was compliant. He was arrested and booked into the main jail without incident on charges of being a felon in possession of a firearm, having a concealed firearm on his person, and carrying a loaded firearm. Moments later, fire personnel arrived and pronounced the suspect deceased at the scene. We wanted to give you an overview of the suspect, 25-year-old Kershawn Geiger. He was a parolee out on post-release community supervision for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, carrying a loaded firearm on his person, grand theft from a person, and burglary. He also had a criminal history of felon in possession of ammunition, receiving stolen property, absconding parole, carjacking, robbery, burglary, resisting arrest, and other theft-related charges. He is also an associate of the 24th Street Crips gang. During the time of this incident, he was armed with a .40 caliber handgun with a loaded magazine. One spent shell casing was recovered at the scene. On Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, the wounded detective was released from the hospital and was escorted home to continue his road to recovery. He is a 16-year veteran of the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office and is currently assigned to the Gang Suppression Unit. We can't wait to have him back with us serving the citizens of Sacramento County. We hope this video will provide you some insight into the complexities of policing and some of the situations sheriff's deputies encounter while keeping our community safe. For more information about the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office, please visit our website at www.sacsheriff.com. On behalf of the men and women of the Sacramento County Sheriff's Office, thank you for watching.
All right, let's get into it.
Yelling their hit.
I don't want you to go outside, but do you see anybody out
We're
there?
actually hiding in the bathroom because there's. I don't.
He saw a large.
So there is a lot of moving parts to this incident. A lot of people. Here's one small child here. There's actually another small child over in here. It appears as though there is one person versus several. I've watched this multiple times. I can only kind of really tell that there's one person that they're beating up on. I had to rewind and watch multiple times. Basically, what I would do to get a better understanding of what the hell was happening is I would pick one person. For example, this guy with the backpack on, where my cursor's circling at, with the multicolored jacket and the hat. I would pick him, and then I'd play,
Group talking
and
in the
I'd
parking
watch him
lot.
throughout the entire incident. I'd hit replay, I'd watch him, and I would kind of pause it, look at what else is going on, play, pause, look at what else is going on to kind of get an idea of where he is at in relation to everything else. Then once I watched him and see what he did, I go back to the very beginning, pick another person, watch them throughout the whole thing, go back, watch another person. So that's really the only way that you can get a good full understanding of this. And it's something that I would encourage you to do. I can tell you that the guy I pointed out right here, he doesn't really do much of anything. He's just kind of a bystander watching. He takes off running. There's actually another person that is kind of a bystander that's in the parking lot, and he'll take off running. There's a woman that shows up kind of over here. She's actually right over in here in the group, but she'll end up right here, and she takes off. So there's some people who are bystanders, and they're not fully involved in what's going on. And then there's some who are directly involved in what's going on, and there are multiple shooters. So I'll hit play,
There
and I'll
appears to be a disagreement between several of the individuals
kind of try and explain some stuff that's going on here.
in that group that leads to a physical fight and culminates into 9 people shooting indiscriminately into a crowd that included children. Pay particular attention to the man in the red hat and blue jacket. He is the shooter.
So although they're pointing this guy out, you can watch him to begin with, but this is where it starts at over in here. Is there's a guy with a blue jacket and looks like a white shirt under it, and then there's another full blue jacket. Let me hit this replay. All right, so you guys see this guy right in here, and then this other guy. So just kind of watch
That
them.
leads to a physical fight
This guy right in
and
here.
culminates into 9 people shooting indiscriminately into a crowd that included children. Pay particular attention to the man in the red hat and blue jacket. He is the shooter.
Okay, continue to watch this area right here. Boom, they go at it.
Here he is
Get him on
seen
the
kicking
ground.
a man's face during a fight.
Back it up. So here's this guy. He's got, I don't know if these are sweatpants or blue jeans, but he's got this blue colored kind of jacket on. They take him down to the ground. They're
Here he
kicking
is
him. They're
seen
beating
kicking a
him.
man's face during a fight.
Multiple people involved in this. Now, he starts to take off.
This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates
All right, so just ignore this guy for right now. Just ignore him for right now. We're tracking this guy right here.
a major gunfight.
I'm sorry, not that guy. This guy right here. There's a couple with the kind of similar colored jackets. All right, so this guy, he takes off. All right. Now, as he's taking off, there's someone in this vehicle. Let me back it up so you can see them better.
After reviewing,
Well,
there appears to be
there
a
was a
disagreement
woman
between several of the
that gets in this
individuals in that
vehicle,
group
and
that
I've
leads
watched it
to
so
a
many
physical
times I
fight
can't
and culminates
tell
into
exactly
9 people
when
shooting
she gets out of the car, but
indiscriminately
you'll see her get
into
out
a
of the car
crowd that
in a
included
second.
children. Pay particular attention to the man in the
Or at
red
some
hat
point,
and blue
maybe
jacket.
not a second.
He is the shooter.
Yeah, so there.
Here he is seen kicking a man's face during a fight.
You see movement inside the car. There's the woman in there.
This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
All right, boom. There's a woman right there. This guy, who's gotten the shit beat out of him, he starts to get up and run. He's running this way. Now, you'll see him run there, and then you'll see his head pop up right here behind this vehicle. So I might not be able to freeze frame it just right, but just focus right in this area. Boom. You see his head pop up right over in there. He starts to get into this vehicle. He fires a shot off, and then he takes off. That's the last we see of him. Back it all the way up to the beginning. So yes, this dude does fire the first shot, but he fires it in the air.
Is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
Now, the second person that starts shooting is right in here, where the cursor's moving. He fires multiple rounds up in the air. Back up.
Here he is. Here he is seen hat and blue jacket into a crowd that included children. Pay particular attention to the man in the red hat and blue jacket. He is the shooter.
I ignore him for right now. Over in here, you'll see this guy wearing a darker colored long sleeve shirt. He starts to get involved in the fight. And then
here he is seen kicking a man's face.
He comes over in here. He's just kind of watching, not doing a whole lot. When old dude fires the first round into the air.
This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
He pulls his gun. He starts firing multiple rounds into the air. He'll move over this way. Now at this point, the guy that was getting the shit beat out of him has already run over here. So let's go back to watching. The second shooter is here. The other guy is about to get into the car and fire one round. Boom, he fired one round. Now this guy lifts his gun up and does a Taliban special. Let's watch this again. Tracking him. All right. Do it again. Here he is, right here. Boom, Taliban special. Holds the gun up, firing with a limp wrist, so to speak. And then he shoots some more towards the end here.
Here he is seen grabbing a child while in possession of a
Still
firearm.
keeping track on this guy. Now this is pretty much when the shooting stops. So that's the second shooter. There was another person, this guy right here. He's got, looks like maybe an acid washed kind of jean jacket kind of thing with a black shirt, and looks like an eagle or some type of yellow print on his shirt right here. He'll also fire some rounds. All right, so let's back it up. Let's track his movements.
Instigates a major gunfight.
See him right
The
there.
first to shoot during a fight. Hat and blue into a crowd that
All right.
included
So that guy with the jean jacket,
children.
he's over in here.
Pay particular attention to the man in the red hat and blue jacket. He is the shooter.
All right. So here he is. He's dragging this guy, the victim, kind of throws him down. Comes
Here
over
he is
here.
seen kicking
He
a
gets
man's
involved.
face during
Can't
a
see a
fight.
whole lot of what he's doing when he's on the ground. And then he gets up. He moves along.
This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
All right. He moves along. He's looking around. You see the gun in his hand. He pulled it out. He's looking around. Old dude over here is about to fire his one round. So go back over here. Watch the dude here. Boom, one round. He comes around and he starts shooting. He's got a little bit better of an aim. He's just still one-handed, but it's a lot better than the dude who was down here doing the Taliban shooting, just holding it above his head and firing away. All right, let's track another person.
Which instigates. He is the shooter.
We're going to track
9 people shooting
we're going to
indiscriminately
track this dude right here with the black pants and a little white stripe going down it.
into a crowd that included children.
So
Pay
he comes
particular
over.
attention to the man in the.
He comes over here to the vehicle. Fight breaks out. Watch what he does. He puts
Here he is
both
seen
drinks
kicking
on
a
top
man's
of the
face
car,
during a fight.
and he gets his gun out. Back that up one more time. Fight breaks out over here. This guy puts
Here he is
both
seen
drinks on
kicking a man's
the
face during a
roof. He
fight.
pulls his gun out. He's ready to start shooting at this moment. He's looking around. Oh, dude's about to fire one gun in the round. Or
This
one
same
gun in the round.
subject is
One
the
gun in
first
the
to
air.
shoot,
One gun round in the air.
which instigates a major gunfight.
Ducks. He moves for cover. He moves pretty quick. He's staying pretty low. It's probably not his first rodeo. All right. Dude over here is about to fire his one round. So let's go back to the guy with the stripe. He takes off all the way over here. And he probably has the best firing grip of them all. Well, can't see his two-handed grip very well, but he seems to have the better one of them all. Everyone else is just kind of doing, and this guy right here, he also does two-handed, but you can't see what kind of two-handed grip he's got. But at least he's a little bit more accurate than one-handed dude and then dude down here with the Taliban special. Fires, and then looks like maybe he
Here
does
he
a
is seen grabbing
reload,
a child
possibly.
while in possession of a firearm.
And then he goes to disappear into a vehicle, it looks like. And we're done with him.
Child while in possession.
Let's track someone else. Alright, so this guy right here with the little red hat, let's try and track him and see what he's been doing. Oh, that's our buddy who started the gunfight. So after he fires some rounds in the air, he comes back around to this. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to hit that. After he fires rounds in the air, That one dude fires that one round. He comes back over here to this vehicle, uses the vehicle for cover, and fires more rounds. And then
Here he is
picks
seen
up
grabbing a child while in
the
possession.
kid. Alright, this guy right here in the red, he just went past the bush. Him, we're going to track him. So he's wearing red. Some type of fanny pack or something like that on his back, maybe. Looks like blue jeans and some white tennis shoes.
Major.
We'll go back to the beginning.
Man's face. Blue jacket to a crowd that included children.
So,
pay particular attention to the man in the red hat and blue jacket. He is the shooter.
In the beginning, it looks like he's right here. This is where he's at. He's kind of watching. He moves along, picks something up. Don't know what that is. That could have been a gun. Something is right there. Don't know what it is. He picks it up.
Here he is seen kicking a man's face during a fight.
And it looked like he's stuffing whatever it is into his waistband.
This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
So he moves away just a little bit. He's got the gun in his hand. He holds the gun over his head. He's firing blindly the whole time. Alright. Now there's some people who don't really have anything to do with what's going on. They're just kind of there. For example, this guy that kind of squats down during the middle of the whole gunfight. Probably not the best place to be. Looks like that might be his car.
Here he is seen grabbing a child while in possession of a firearm. Here he is seen.
Okay, so I want to bring some up. Show this.
Instigate.
Let's watch this little kid. This little kid all by himself.
It's a major gunfight.
No one goes to him. He just turns and starts running with everyone else. He comes over here. We lose sight of him. The guy with the colored jacket looks like he's got a hold of the kid. You can see him over in here more. We see another little kid right here. The kid's barely tall enough to have his head above the hood of this small car. Like, tiny little kid. we'll see this guy right here, who ends up being this guy's friend. He runs, grabs that kid, and he appears to shield the kid with his body. Probably about the only redeemable thing I see with any of these people is he kind of uses his body as a shield for
Here
the
he
little
is seen
kid.
grabbing a child while in possession of a firearm.
But he grabs the kid. You watch him. He comes back around. He gets in the car with the shooter. So they're friends with each other.
There's surveillance footage. Here,
So in the beginning, let's back it up.
this
There's this guy in the car when it first starts. He's in the driver's seat.
Here he is seen kicking a man's face during a fight.
He's just kind of watching from the car.
This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
You see a gun in his hand. Oh no, let's see that one more time. So he's got a gun. He's a player too, but he doesn't shoot a bunch of rounds. See that gun pop up?
Here he is seen grabbing a child while in possession of a firearm.
He's kind of looking around, seeing what's going on.
Their surveillance footage showed the initial shooter and an adult male leaving the scene in a silver Kia Soul. The silver Kia Soul was determined to be a rental car.
All right, so back it up. He had a passenger in the vehicle.
Instigate.
Passenger gets out. Passenger has
Here he
grayish
is seen
colored
kicking a man's face during a fight.
sweater.
This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
He's got a gun right there. He's a little unsure on what to do. He does the Taliban special as well, and then takes off. He got that up. So there he is, a little unsure what he's going to be doing. Gun out in his hand. Fires some rounds, and then he immediately starts to pull his hood up. So he knows he needs to conceal his identity with all these shots being fired.
Which fight. Your attention to the man in the red permanently
We're going to pay attention to this big guy in the yellow right here with the black pants.
into a crowd that included children. Pay particular attention to the man in the red hat and blue jacket. He is the shooter.
All right, so the fight breaks out. He just kind of goes along the sidewalk here, watching this fight
Here he
go
is seen
on.
kicking a man's face during a fight.
And then he decides that he's going to get down in there and have some fun. So he kicks and beats.
This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
Takes off. Dude fires one round from the car, and then he takes off.
It's the first to face during.
All right. So this woman right here with the blue shirt and the multicolored pants, I don't know what this is. She walks
Here he
away
is
from
seen
the
kicking
fight,
a man's face during a fight.
stands right here on the sidewalk, watches what's going on.
This same subject is the first to shoot,
fires one round,
which instigates a major
not one
gunfight.
round, but he fires in the air. She takes off. We don't see her anymore.
This same. Here.
We also see what appears to be another person who just kind of
Here he is seen
takes
kicking
off
a
and doesn't
man's face
reappear.
during a fight. This same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight. Major gun. This. Here he is. Red hat and in fight. Appears to be a disagreement between deputies saw a parking lot.
Right.
After reviewing apartments,
Well,
there
all right,
appears
so we
to
see
be a
another
disagreement
person here.
between several of the
Looks
individuals
like he's on
in
his
that
phone.
group that leads to a physical fight and culminates into 9 people shooting indiscriminately into a crowd that included children. Pay particular attention to the man in the red hat and blue.
So fight breaks out. This guy kind of backs away, moves out into the
Here he is seen
open
kicking a man's
drive
face
of the
during a
parking
fight.
lot here. Fast forward it. He's right here.
Shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
He's like, nah, bruh. And he just kind of leaves the scene. So there's a few people who have,
Fight.
you know,
This same.
they're here, they're watching things,
Here he is seen
but they
kicking a
don't have much to do with the big part of it. Now there are multiple shooters in this, although this one guy did fire the first round and got them all hyped up. The rest of them are just as guilty, in my
This
opinion.
same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight. Which instigates a major gunfight.
So why is he shooting the gun in the air? Is that the idea of a warning shot? So I think the warning shot thing is kind of stupid, especially in urban environments. This is something you see in the movies, and it's a kind of a dramatic effect when a person fires a gun in the air and scares the shit out of everyone else, and everyone stops what they're doing, and everyone just pauses and just kind of stares in awe. That, of course, only happens in the movies. In real life, when someone fires a warning shot, everyone freaks the fuck out and it can actually make a situation a lot worse than what it already is. So could this have still led into a gunfight without this guy firing that first round in the air? Possibly. This dude who was getting the shit beat out of him, he might have decided to fire a round at these people after having the shit beat out of him. It's hard to say. But warning shots, in my opinion, are never really a good idea. In this particular case, it obviously set off a chain reaction. Now, you also have where that bullet's going to come down at. But that is determined by the angle or the trajectory of that round. So firing straight up into the air, of course, the bullet will come out at its flight rate, 2,000 feet per second, something like that. But once it reaches a point where it no longer has the energy to keep going, gravity and wind resistance will slow it down. All right. So it leaves the gun at a certain speed. The wind resistance and gravity starts taking effect on it, slows it all the way down to the point where it stops going up, and then it'll just eventually start falling back down to the ground. So when it's falling to the ground, it's not going at the same speed that it came out of the barrel. So it's not like this bullet's going to come down and go through a person or a car the same way it would have if it had just came out of the barrel. It's going to be falling at a normal rate. And so there's actually a really cool show on Mythbusters where they fired some guns in the air and did the calculations and recovered them. And I mean, basically the projectiles are in free fall. I mean, once they reach that certain distance where they're no longer traveling at the same speed that they came out of the bullet, and they're just falling back to earth, and they're not that deadly when they fall back to the ground. But if you have the trajectory where it's at a different degree angle, then there is that risk of that bullet traveling a certain distance and going through a wall or hitting a person. So in this instance, the way he fired his gun, he did it not completely straight up, but it is at an angle. But it's not, if it was more pointing this way, be a lot more of a concern. Still, I'm not a big fan of this angle. If it was completely straight up, that would be better. Be the lesser of the evils, I guess you could say. But just doing the warning shot altogether is just not a good idea.
A major gunfight.
This asshole right here, no regard for anyone. It doesn't even fully look like he's even shooting at the guy. Guy has no control over his gun whatsoever. He's just very blindly firing. Now, from this security camera angle, we can't tell what exactly is over here, but I would imagine that there's probably some more housing or something over in here. If not immediately right in here, then at least within a quarter of a mile, there's more housing and stuff over this way. And this guy blindly firing one-handed Taliban style, just holding the gun up like this, almost above his head, it seems like, the first round. Like, that's dangerous. That's putting so many people's lives at risk. Same with Matt's over here. I mean, just look how high his his hand is there. No telling how many of those rounds just completely missed, and where they ever went. I don't know what the outcome of this particular case is, if they've identified some of these other people. Obviously, the first dude to shoot, he doesn't need to be the only one that they need to go after. All these people are pieces of shit. Now, apartment complexes. So there are some apartment complexes where this kind of shit is normal, and they're rougher places. Now, each city's different, obviously, but when it comes to housing, there's a lot of similarities in between these towns. And the apartment complexes in towns, they range from high scale to low scale. You can have some apartment complexes where it's very quiet. The only movement you see outside the place are the vehicles coming in and out where the people live, and they park, get out of the car, go inside, and you might see a dog being walked here and there. That's the extent of what goes on. There's some apartment complexes that are more college oriented, especially in your, obviously your college towns. And these can be a mix of different styles. There's some that can be pretty tame. There's not a whole lot that goes on. You see a lot of pedestrian traffic in the parking lot area, people going back and forth to their vehicles. Not a whole lot going on outside, not a whole lot of people hanging out outside. Of course, you'll have some of your loud parties and stuff on the weekends, and sometimes even during the week, mostly on the weekends, but not a whole lot of trouble. And then there's some apartment complexes where there's just a lot of stuff going on, and there's a lot of people trying to hang out in the parking lots. There's lots of parties going on the weekends, and even during the week. There's people who don't even live there going through the parking lot trying to steal stuff, car hop, look through things. Some of the people that live there take it over the top. Huge parties. I mean, just irresponsible kind of parties. Whole apartment complex, or the whole apartment just cram packed full of people. Lots of property damage and stuff. And then there's some apartment complexes where, I mean, it looks almost like a scene out of Training Day, where they're in that neighborhood where the guy's clapping his hands and the pigeons are flying, the little dead end street. I mean, there's some apartment complexes that are like that, and it all depends on a multitude of things: the management of the building, how they do their screening process for applicants, the background checks and whatnot, the price point. The price point kind of matters a lot too. So the higher the rent, then typically some of the more responsible people you're going to have there, because if it's a higher rent, then they're working in a job where they're making a little bit more money, and a lot of times that job that makes more money is a job that requires a responsible person. So there's that high price point, the management that screens the people, selects the best candidates for living there. The location has a lot to do with it. If it's in a very, very low income area, then you can have good tenants there, but you could also have the people who live around that place coming through, car hopping, stealing stuff, and there just be a lot of property crimes like that there. The further away it is from low income areas and is more in a middle to higher income area, typically the better clientele that's going to be in that place it's going to be, and then the neighborhood around it, not so many problems because they don't have to resort to stealing stuff. And then your apartments that are in the low income area, that's who they cater to. Those places can have a lot of problems. So I don't know anything about this particular apartment complex, but just all these dudes being so comfortable staying outside, hanging outside, and then you see all this junk out here in the front. Looks like a beer bottle, just all kinds of shit out here, man. Even looking at some of the vehicles out here, this looks like it's probably a more lower income apartment complex. And with those type of apartment complexes, there's going to be problems. To mitigate those problems, the management of the property is paramount. If there's a good manager who's proactive, they're going to stop a lot of the problems, but it also has a lot to do with the security of that complex. And a lot of apartment complexes tend to choose cheap security, or depending on the town, they may also choose to offer up to the local police officers discounted rates or free rooms for them to live there so that they can obviously have their police car parked there when they're not working. And they count those officers as their courtesy officers. So here locally, that is something that goes on within my town. There are some apartment complexes that offer discounted rooms or free rooms for local police officers, and in return, the police car is parked there during the officers' off hours, because most of our agencies here have take-home vehicle policies. And then that officer that lives there in that apartment complex is considered the courtesy officer. And for that particular, apartment complexes, that having that courtesy officer helps them with their insurance rates. Now, for the apartment complexes that have our Bowling Green police officers living there, our Bowling Green Police Department has policies in place that basically prevent the officers from doing anything when they're off duty. So, one of the big things that, law enforcement like to say here in Kentucky, and I know they say it in other places across the state or the nation, is if you're a police officer, you're really never off duty. Okay, I get that, and I could kind of agree with that. But the Bowling Green Police Department has a policy in place where if they're off duty, they're off duty. Unless it's something super serious that they need to get involved in. If it's them living in an apartment complex and there's a loud party complaint, they're not supposed to be getting involved in anything. What they're supposed to be doing is calling dispatch and having a uniformed on-duty police officer come out there to deal with the problem. So these Bowling Green police officers who live at these apartment complexes and are off duty and are considered the courtesy officers, the only thing they get to do is whip their phone out and call dispatch and have a uniformed officer show up. So basically, they are observe and report security guards, like your cliche mall cop. That's all they can do. But these apartment complexes, they don't understand those things. They just kind of think that the officer can actually go do something, and they'll allow them to stay there for rent-free or a discounted room. Now, one particular apartment complex in my area, and I'll refrain from naming them. They have a couple of city police officers who live there. And there was an incident, or multiple incidents, where there was a lot of property crimes occurring on this property, a lot of vandalism. Some juveniles were going through and busting windshields and drawing and painting on stuff and just causing all kinds of trouble. Well, this apartment complex decided to increase security, and they paid for private security to come out there. On top of having these city police officers who live there. Now, up until this point, those city police officers had done very minimal. They hadn't really caught a whole lot of people doing anything there. Private security comes in, and almost instantaneously, upon getting there, private security starts making contact with multiple people who don't even live there and are identifying people, like I said, who do not live there, have no business being there, and these people were essentially basically looking for shit to steal. Some meth heads rolling through the parking lot, giving bogus stories about meeting people, and then checking it out, finding out they don't live there. All kinds of stuff going on these properties. Lots of people caught and prevented from doing things. And while the private security was out doing their work, these off-duty police officers were never seen. Their cars were there at the apartment complex, but they were never seen out doing anything. They were not performing any courtesy officer duties. They weren't checking up on anything or anything like that. Basically just staying inside their apartment. And I forget the amount of time that was involved with the private security staying there. Maybe within a month, close to a month of being there, they stopped a lot of people and had a lot of people banned from the property who were up to no good. And you take that in comparison to, the last several months with what those courtesy officers did, that security crew did more in 1 month than what those two courtesy officers did in half a year or a whole year. And they were a very proactive security group and prevented a lot of issues going on in that 1 month period. And when things started dropping down, less and less things happening throughout this time period. And they also developed a lead on one of the juveniles involved in all that vandalism. But once, all this major thing started stopping, and going down because people were catching wind. Hey, there's, people out here stopping people and doing stuff. Management, just like most places, said, oh, well, the problem's fixed. We'll get rid of private security. So they got rid of the private security, and I haven't kept up with that property, so I don't know what's going on with it anymore, but I can only imagine that the issues have gone back up. There's another apartment complex in my town that has hired your typical observe and report type of security company who basically really don't do much of anything. And there has always been problems at that apartment complex, shootings and burglaries, all kinds of stupid shit going on. But there's security on site, on top of also having an off-duty peace officer living on the property. Another apartment complex in our area had security from two different vendors. The first vendor, not a lot was done from that vendor. They were on site. They were kind of proactive, but the management got rid of them and went with someone else. And for several years, that other vendor they went with was a very proactive type of security company, and was not the observe and report type. They were out being proactive, engaging people, talking to people, very active in the security work for that property. Before that vendor had taken over, that property was kind of known as kind of being a little wild. You know, lots of just crazy, super wild parties and lots of people congregating out in the parking lot up to no good, kind of this kind of shit going on. Lots of vehicle thefts. I mean, all kinds of stuff going on. That other vendor took over and they cleaned house. No more people congregating in the parking lot, causing issues. The parties, of course, still went on, but to the craziness of it, you know, it went down. It became pretty quiet around there. Not a whole lot of big problems, but due to where this apartment complex was, being situated close to a low income area, there were still some people who would go through the parking lot and car hop and look for things to steal, but they were very proactive in trying to catch them, and have caught multiple people car hopping and sneaking through the property and looking for things to steal. Lots of people caught, lots of people arrested, lots of people banned from the property due to that proactiveness. And then when dealing with people on the property, the management of that property worked well with the security on site. And anytime security had some egregious issues with people, management would evict those people. Well, and that's a pretty important thing. So if your management of the property is not going to back up security, and everyone's going to run over security and talk shit to them and just not take them serious, then that's a problem. And so if management allows that stuff to go on, then you might as well not have security at all. And in that particular case where management had a very good relationship with the security on site and would listen to them, it really helped with the management of that property. I remember one particular case, some dudes, they had parked their car where they shouldn't have parked it. They didn't have a pass in their windshield. Tow truck company came by to tow the vehicle, and this apartment complex had a relationship with a tow truck company to kind of manage their lot, because there would be a lot of guests and other people who would just kind of use that parking lot to park there so that they could go across the street to the campus and not have to pay the campus fees. So this tow truck company would come through and look for cars that didn't have the passes and would tow them. Well, this tow truck company came in to tow this vehicle. As they're hooked up to this vehicle, these two dudes come out of the house or the apartment and just raising all kinds of hell, threatening the tow truck drivers. One jumps in the vehicle and refuses to get out. Security gets on sites, dealing with them. They're being complete assholes, just obnoxious and belligerent. Police get there. Everything, of course, is recorded on body camera, and those two guys' behaviors for that whole entire ordeal, that was captured on body camera from security, and security provided the report and body camera to the property management, and property management said, we're not dealing with this kind of bullshit, and they evicted those two fuckers, just based on how they treated the security for that complex. And that sends a message to all the other inhabitants of the apartment complex. You fuck around, you find out, right? So the safety and security of an apartment complex, there's some factors that are involved in it that will dictate, how safe of a place it can be. But there's just some places it doesn't matter. It's just going to be dangerous as shit. And this is probably one of them places. They could probably have a proactive security team there, but it's not going to make a world of difference because this stuff has been going on for so long that they're going to have an uphill battle. Now, if it's a brand new apartment complex starting off in a low income area with lots of shady people, and they first open and they have that proactive security on site, then I think you have a higher chance of success of having a safer property in a bad area. But for an apartment complex that has been operating for a long period of time, lots of lawlessness going on, no security, or your weak ass observe and report kind of security company's been there and hasn't really done a whole lot. This company then tries to turn around and hire a very proactive security company. It's going to be very hard to get that property turned around and have order come into place, because these people have just gone on for so long without being checked and put in their place. And it's going to be an uphill battle, and probably going to be some fights going on, lots of hairy, violent moments. But yeah, enough on apartment complex security. We see people using vehicles as cover. Vehicles are not always the best form of cover. Bullets can go through trunks pretty easily, go through car doors pretty easily. Even pistol caliber ammunition, you can have a 9mm go through one car door right here, and then either go completely through the other car door or pretty much almost make it all the way through. Rifle, depending on what's being fired, can definitely go through both car doors, even the trunk, even a 22. You can fire a 22 through a car door, and so long as it doesn't hit something majorly hard within that that door frame or whatever, it can puncture the skin and the inside of the door and go through the other door, no problem. So vehicles are not always the best form of cover. If it's the only thing, you don't have big mound of earth or big concrete or big trees to hide behind, then it's better than nothing. And people will tend to gravitate and take cover behind vehicles, as in this guy right here. Other people will just kind of stand out in the open. If we're taking cover behind vehicles, obviously we want to use the engine block area, the wheel axles to the front and to the back. Those provide the most cover. Or in terms of long ways, trying to, threats up here to the front of the vehicle. If you can get to the rear of the vehicle, put as much mass in between you and the threat as possible. That's great. But just generally, vehicles don't provide the best cover, but they can be better than nothing at all. It's also apparent that none of these guys have any formal firearms training. We see a couple of them who appear to take a two-handed grip when shooting. We don't know what kind of two-handed grip they got. They could be doing the teacup kind of grip. They could be holding the wrist with their support hand grabbing their dominant wrist. They could be doing that kind of thing. We don't know if they're having an actual good two thumbs forward kind of grip. And that's typical. You don't see street people trained very well, and that's a good thing.
Here he is seen
A
grabbing
lot
a
of them
child
just shoot
while in possession of
one-handed
a
or shoot
firearm.
really high into the air. But some of them get lucky and get lucky hits in.
The surveillance footage showed the initial shooter and an adult male leaving the scene in a silver Kia Soul. The silver Kia Soul was determined to be a rental scene. The surveillance
So the chaoticness of this scene right here. Let's talk about use of force and protection of another. Let's say you're an armed citizen and you come around the corner and you observe all this. What are you going to do? Your best course of action is to beat feet and get the hell out of there. If it's not your fight, don't get involved. What if you're apartment complex security or you're the police? What are you doing in this instance? There's some people involved in this situation who were there and they
a disagreement
didn't
between several of the
have a
individuals in the
direct
shooting indiscriminately in the blue
involvement
jacket.
in the
He is the shooter.
fight. For example, I think this guy here with the pants with the white stripe.
Here he is seen
He
kicking
stands
a
here
man's
during
face
this
during the
fight. While
fight.
this fight's going on, he gets his gun out. He watches. He sees what's going on. Old dude fires the warning shot in the air. He's still
This
there.
same subject is the first to shoot, which instigates a major gunfight.
He's still there. Boom. He takes cover. He runs away. He hides down while all the other shots are being fired. Now, depending on what kind of state he's in, he may have the duty to retreat, run completely away. In other states, maybe not. He's still there. All right. Old dude over here is about to get in and fire a shot. So let's continue watching him. Boom, he fires that shot. He runs, he takes cover, and he starts shooting. So, does he have a defense to using deadly physical force in protection of himself or another? It's kind of a stretch since the other guy has kind of fled at this point. That's a bit of a stretch. See if I can find or remember another person as an example. Well, some of them aren't going to be good examples because they were directly involved in the fight and they were mostly aggressors.
Which instigates a major gunfight.
Maybe the guy in the red here. So
here he is seen kicking
he's kind of there.
during a fight.
There's nothing illegal about watching a fight, right? So he's just kind of chilling out, not much going on. Doesn't have a very direct involvement in this fight whatsoever.
This same subject is the
warning shot. Okay, all right. He's looking around. Oh shit. He gets over here. He's walking towards this way. He's talking. Shot. Boom. Now, does this guy have a defense to using deadly physical force in self-protection or protection of another? I would say he probably has a better chance of arguing that than maybe the guy over here because he was so much closer to the gunfire itself. So if he did, let's say he did shoot the other guy, would he be able to claim self-defense in that? That would be obviously something up for a jury to decide. But let's just say the jury would have decided, yeah. But before that all happens, let's say, security comes around the corner and boom, that's all you see is this dude shooting in this direction. And then security or police shoot this guy. Well, this guy may have been defending himself against this dude who shot at him. So it's a sticky situation when coming into a scenario like this where there's multiple people involved and you haven't got to see what has transpired beforehand. Obviously, going in guns a-blazing sometimes is not always the answer. Identifying yourself, giving those verbal commands for them to drop the weapons would be done. And of course, anytime those weapons turn towards you, that's a different ball game. That's a whole different outcome that changes things drastically. As far as armed citizens coming across this and wanting to get involved, don't do it. It's not worth the juice is not worth the squeeze. It's not your fight. Don't get involved. Apartment complex security. If you're the observe and report type, obviously you're just going to be observing what's going on and calling the police and telling them what's going on. If you're a more proactive security company, that amount of gunfire being fired, and you can tell that it's more than one gun being fired, you would know that it's not an incident where you're going to have a high chance of success. So you could theoretically come around, try to engage one person, and I don't mean engage by shooting, but get a bead on one person and start giving them commands, and then these other people can turn and start shooting at you. An apartment complex security doesn't have a whole team of people, right? So it's not like you got immediate backup. Some apartment complexes security may have 2 people on site. That's a little bit better. But in something like this, the best course of action may be wait until there's a lull in the fight. Everyone stops shooting, trying to have an advantage point to observe and see what's going on, because you really have no clue fully what's going on. So many moving parts there, and if you get out and you end up, shooting this guy over here with a gun, well, his little buddies right here, they're going to turn and start shooting as well. And now you're in a outnumbered gunfight, and that's a shitty situation to be in. Police responding to something like this, obviously, there's going to be more police coming to this incident than what security can provide. So that response is going to be totally different than a security response to something like this, because they just have better numbers to be able to deal with the situation.
Here he is seen grabbing a child while
Obviously, the security cameras here are a good aspect or a good piece of equipment to have. Good quality cameras. It sucks when these places have these cheap ass cameras where everything's all fuzzy looking and you can't really tell what's going on. Good high definition cameras are a must for any type of residential security. And this is where, if management can identify tenants of this property, this is enough evidence for them to do an eviction. Because you obviously don't want assholes like this living on your property where they're going to be prone to shoot up other tenants' vehicles and other tenants.
in the scene car and marked vehicle due to the
Oops. All right, so I feel like I ranted long enough about what I ranted about earlier. So this is one of the officers involved in the follow-up to this. So he's wearing typical tactical duty pants, a whole duty belt, gun, cuffs, magazine pouch, taser, remote mic, big badge, big sheriff identifier, big outer vest. But there's an absence of a body camera. I mean, I understand these dudes may have been, plain
uniform arrived at the way in
clothes
Rampart
or,
Drive.
detectives
A
or
detective
whatever.
sergeant and a detective arrived at the apartment complex.
I understand they may have been in that role, but, if they're going to have that equipment, then they should also have body cameras.
In separate, unmarked vehicles wearing their tactical uniforms. This photo was taken the day of the incident. Due to the undercover use of these vehicles, they do not have in-car cameras. What you're about to see.
So I can kind of understand, why you wouldn't want a big camera in the windshield of an unmarked vehicle. I get that. But again, like I said, there's really no reason why they shouldn't have had body cameras.
Is a reenactment of what occurred. Detectives immediately saw the video. The in red overhead and
because they didn't have body cameras, we're now left with this animation.
grill lights. He exited his vehicle with his weapon drawn and said, "Sheriff's office, show me your hands. Sheriff's office, show me your hands." Both of the subjects in the vehicle complied by placing their hands in the air. Moments later, the detective arrived and parked his vehicle on the driver's side of the suspect vehicle at an approximately 45-degree angle and began talking to the driver. While the sergeant was engaging the suspect in the passenger seat, the detective yelled, "Gun, gun, gun," indicating that the driver of the vehicle had a gun. The suspect shot the detective, immediately exited the vehicle with his gun in hand while the detective returned fire. The sergeant also engaged the suspect in gunfire.
All right, so this officer gets hit and goes down to the ground, presumably in a supine position, or he could have been on his side in a sort of fetal type of position. Modern tactical firearms training should include firing from your back. Now, each company's different on how they present, a combative's pistol or a tactical pistol kind of course. Whatever name or designation you want to give it, there should be some block of instruction on firing from a supine position or from your back. And when we talk about stances, a shooting stance, the two that are focused mostly on are isosceles and weaver stance. That seems to be the two that everyone gravitates towards when firearms training is talked about, because you're mostly standing during your firearms training. But in real life, on the two-way range, it's not always going to be a nice golf course shooting condition where you get to stand there and plink away at a target that doesn't shoot back. You may have to kneel behind cover. So you need to train and practice to fire from kneeling positions, shooting around cover. You could be either knocked to your back from a push, you could fall on your ass while walking backwards, or you could be shot and fall on your ass and your back. And then you will need to fight from your back and fight back to your feet. So your training should include firing from a supine position and getting back to your feet. If your tactical handgun class or your combatives handgun class, whatever, has not included that, then it was not good training in my opinion. It needs to have some block of instruction in there on that aspect. Trying to verbally explain the process of what you need to do from your back is not going to convey very well without any type of visual aids, and I haven't got any visual aids to put in this video. So that could be a video idea for me later on to do, is firing from supine position. But just know that if your firearms training that you've had has not included anything in there about shooting from your back, then you should start looking for more additional firearms training, because what you got wasn't good enough.
The detective stumbled backwards, fell onto the ground near the rear of the suspect vehicle while continuing the gunfight. While on the ground, the suspect attempted to retrieve his gun, and the detective shot additional rounds at the suspect to stop the threat.
Shots fired, shots fired.
Copy, Gang 2 Sam, shots fired.
Gang 2 Sam, I need code 3 fire. I have a detective that has been hit. Suspect is down.
Copy, detective hit suspect down. Units CPR clear for Gang 2 Sam, Ranger, and Rampart.
Information District 1, we have shots fired. Ranger.
So there was a air unit headed towards this way. We can see the scene right here. Here's that truck that one officer pulled up in. Here's the other vehicle the other officer pulled up in. You can see officer laying on ground, and then you can see suspect laying on ground. You can't see the vehicle very well, the suspect vehicle, because it would appear to me as though that vehicle had not been started yet and had not been running for some period of time, because we don't see a hot white glow from the engine compartment area. What you're seeing in this thermal image is they have the setting of white hot turned on, and basically the hot stuff within this image is going to be on the white scale. So the engine compartment here, engine compartment here, engine compartment here are showing white. The people are showing white, and then of course, other things within the images of the landscape of this are showing white. You can see this engine block showing white. You can see some other vehicles here. For example, this is a vehicle. Nothing's glowing hot on this. That's probably because this vehicle's been sitting for a long period of time, and there's just nothing to show hotness on. You can see some of these buildings right here. Some white hot coming through. Different hot spots, but that's what you're seeing with the white hot. There's also a setting called black hot, and all the hot stuff will show up on the black scale. And depending on contrast and stuff like that, you can switch in between those two different settings to get better views. But most of the time, white hot is usually what's used.
Way in Rampart.
But that's what we see.
Still have one other suspect at gunpoint. I have one suspect down. Gun is still by him. He's still at gunpoint. He's still breathing. I need code 3 fire for my detective and another one for the suspect that shot.
So this guy has pretty good, clear radio communications. He is being very clear and concise with the messages that he is delivering. In other videos, people are screaming into the radio, making very excited comments and or talking. And you'll often hear sometimes where the dispatcher has to ask them to repeat what they said. This guy, he has really good, cool, calm, collective radio traffic. And that's an important thing because of the dynamic of the situation there. If you're having to eat up airtime by repeating yourself because no one can understand what the hell you're talking about, then you're eating up radio air, and you're tying up that radio air for more critical communications that need to be conveyed across the radio. The less time that you're talking on the radio, the better. If you've worked in public service and you got a radio hog, you completely understand what I'm talking about. For those people who haven't worked in public service, there's always that one person who will talk a book on the radio and will keep that microphone pressed down and talk for long periods of time. You can't understand what the hell they're saying if they get all excited. Or you'll have people who key up really fast on the radio, blurt something that you just couldn't understand what they said, and everyone's just kind of looking around like, what the hell did they just say? And you have to ask for them to repeat what they said. Bad radio etiquette is is a problem and just leads to confusion and ties up radio time when, you know, when they're talking and blabbing or whatever, or they're having to take that extra time to repeat what the hell they said. Someone might need to be pressing the talk button and get some good information out there that's critical, but they can't because someone's blabbing on the radio, either talking too long or they're just, having to repeat themselves on something that they don't need to be repeating themselves on because they should have said it clearly the first time. So good radio communications on
A
this
patrol
guy.
sergeant arrives on scene and runs to pull the shot detective to safety while the detective sergeant deals with the passenger. The passenger, who had a
So dragging. This is something that you should train and practice on when at the range. So, each agency and company is different when it comes to firearms training and their qualifications. This might be something that people initially do maybe during the academy, their first initial good firearms training, and it might not be. It varies from place to place. Some places may have good training programs in place where they'll practice this kind of stuff. Other people, they probably never dragged anybody. There may be some places the only time they ever do a drag is during their annual fitness test where they have to drag a dummy so many feet, and then that's it. They only do it once a year, and it's just a dummy, and they might not even do it with any type of proficiency. It might be just a a bad drag, I guess you could say. So, things to think about, if they got an outer vest on, of course, some outer vests come with carry handles on them. Each manufacturer is a little bit different on how well they make a carry handle onto their vest. Some of them will obviously use lots of extra stitching on that carry handle to be able to deal with all the stress that's going to be exerted on it and the amount of weight that it's going to have to deal with when you're dragging a person. Other carry handles may fail. I think that instead of putting all that stress and weight on one point of the vest, I think it's better to distribute that into 2 points. So if it's safe to do so, I would recommend grabbing both of the shoulder straps and pulling the person that away. Now, if you have to keep a gun in one hand, then obviously that's where that drag handle comes into play or could come into play. Gun in one hand, and then you're grabbing that person by that drag handle and dragging them out. Other vests may not have a drag handle, so you just have to pick one of the shoulder straps to grab them by and drag them. Depending on how that person has that vest on, how loose it is, there is the possibility that grabbing them by the vest and pulling on the vest, that you could pull the vest up pretty high on them or it slip off of them completely. At that point, you would just have to readjust, grab them by the shirt, the collar, get you a good purchase on there, and start dragging that away. If they're conscious, then you could have them grip your hand and you grip theirs and you drag them with one hand or one arm, or they use both their hands to grab your one arm and you're dragging them that away. Or, if you don't have to have that one gun in your hand, then you can grab both arms and drag them that away. With plate carriers, there is a technique to, or not technique, but more of a setup to take tubular webbing and weave it in through the little straps on the plate carrier or the vest, the little straps that go around the back and the front that you can attach your pouches to, the little Molly webbing or Powell's webbing, whatever you want to call it. There's a method to take tubular webbing and run them through those things and then have it set up so that you can create that as a drag handle. And it's a lot more effective, more reliable drag handle, so to speak. But dragging someone out of the hot zone could be a needed thing, and it's something that I would encourage you to practice on and do. If you've got the Rescue Randy and you can incorporate that into your skills or your drills, then do it. Then do that and get people better prepared and able to perform those kind of tasks in the heat of the moment. If you got an extra vest, a retired vest or something like that, keep that and put it on the Rescue Randy. If you don't have the Rescue Randy, you're just using people, then obviously, those old retired vests come into play because you can use those to abuse. Have someone put on the old retired vest and have them lay there, and then you can grab a hold of them in the vest and drag them. So that's one good thing about keeping expired things or broken equipment is it's good for training. I've got a taser, an X26 taser that's broken. I could have thrown it away, but I kept it for training purposes. I can use it in my duty belt and perform, other kind of drills or whatever, and not worry about breaking an actual good working taser. Duty belts, same thing with that. You may get a new duty belt at some point throughout your career. Keep the old one. There's no need to get rid of it. I mean, yeah, it might be torn up looking and look bad. Well, perfect for training purposes, right? Keep that thing, throw it in the closet. If you got a locker at work, the extra space, keep it in there. Keep it in the trunk of your car, whatever. It might not look great for everyday duty use anymore, but when it comes to the training, it's still a good belt. And who cares if you scratch up a belt that's already scratched up and looks like shit anyway? So keep your equipment that is retired and or broken, so long as it can still sort of be used. Keep that for training purposes, because we don't want to jack up our good go to work stuff.
Firearm in his waistband remained in the vehicle and was compliant. He was arrested and booked into the main jail without incident on charges of being a felon in possession of a firearm, having a concealed firearm on his person, and carrying a loaded firearm. Moments later, fire personnel arrived and pronounced the suspect deceased at the scene. We wanted to give you an overview of the suspect, 25-year-old Kershawn Geiger. He was a parolee out on post-release community supervision for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, carrying a loaded firearm on his person, grand theft from a person, and burglary. He also had a criminal history of felon in possession of ammunition, receiving stolen property, absconding parole, carjacking, robbery, burglary, resisting arrest, and other theft-related charges. He is also an associate of the 24th Street Crips gang. During the time of this incident,
All right, fine, upstanding citizen with all these criminal convictions and arrests was out on parole. This happens way too often. Way, 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 way too often. These miscreants, these dangers to society, menaces to society, they are way too often let out of prison, let out of jail with just little slaps on the wrist. Our police can do a pretty decent job in catching bad guys and then throwing them in the cage, but the courts really drop the ball a lot of times and just let these people out. If this guy had still been in prison instead of out on parole, there's a good chance that this incident would not have occurred. Now, it's hard to say that for sure without knowing all the intricate details of this incident and all the people involved and why they were there and all that. But, butterfly effect, this guy, if he was still in prison and he was not there at that scene, then there's I would argue a pretty good chance that all that stuff that went on wouldn't have happened. Other cases where criminals let out, the Brevard County Sheriff video where the dude comes out of the vehicle and there's a little kid in the back seat. Dude comes out of the vehicle with the AR pistol, shoots at him, runs around the cop car, and then starts beating one over the head with his AR pistol. That guy, he had a lengthy criminal background and was out on a bond for some serious stuff. If that guy had still been locked in a jail cell, none of that shit would have happened. It makes me wonder. It makes me want to pose the question, who is more of a clear and present danger to society? Is it these thugs? Or is it our courts? Which of those two is a clear and present danger to society? Because at this point, throughout the years, after observing so much of the criminal justice system and, having some involvement with the criminal justice system, and being able to see things more than the regular person, it really, like I said, it really makes me wonder, who is more of a clear and present danger to society? The street thugs who go out and do shit, or the courts who just fucking let them go all the damn time? I'm starting to lean more towards the courts being a clear and present danger to society. Now there's some courts out there, some judges who don't take no shit and they hold it to them. But there's a lot of judges out there, a lot of liberal judges who don't. And I'm gonna throw Louisville under the bus on this. There's a lot of liberal ass judges in Louisville, Kentucky, and the shit they decide to do is bonkers. It is crazy. But there's been a lot of times where the courts, they will just release people on small bonds, and they get out and they go out and they do other things, and or these people who get out on parole. Here locally we had a guy who was in prison and he got parole, he got out, and he ended up shooting and killing a guy. Um, that I believe was a relative of his. Something I believe to do over a woman. But that guy, if he had stayed in prison, instead of making parole, if he stayed in prison, he wouldn't have got out and shot that guy. So lots of times where the courts, they just drop the ball and people are released on too small of a bond. They're given probation and parole, given multiple chances, and they're clear and present dangers to society. There's just some people who do not need to be out of the cage. They need to be in the cage forever, because they bring nothing to society other than grief and sorrow, and danger. Enough on that rant. His gun looks like a piece of crap Taurus. Of course, we see this is. I don't know if this is going to be an extended magazine or not. I don't think it is. That looks like where the magazine release would catch and hold the magazine in place. So, not really sure if this is extended or not. I don't think it is. Because we see another shot.
He was armed with a .40 caliber handgun with a loaded magazine.
Yeah, so it looks like it was just a standard magazine because that was the cutout for where the magazine release would catch it right there. So I Don't know
Other theft
if
during the time of this incident.
his gun fell like this and it came out, or if the police grabbed the gun and cleared it and then laid it back down for photography purposes. It's possible that it could have fallen out like this and just landed like that, but who knows?
He was armed with a .40 caliber handgun with a loaded magazine. One spent shell casing was recovered at the scene. On Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, the wounded detective was released from the hospital and was...
So that's a good ending. A good guy lives, gets to come back home, and hopefully has gotten to go back to work. That's always a good ending. It's never good when a police officer dies. Police officers they're like the white blood cells in your body. They fight off the bad things and keep you alive. And anytime there is a death within law enforcement, that is that's a loss to society. That's a diminishment to society when the protectors expire. So I'm really glad that this guy survived this fight.
Continue his road to recovery. He is
And
a
gets to come
16-year
back,
veteran of the Sacramento County
not just
Sheriff's
survive, but go back out onto the
Office,
street and
and is currently
continue to
assigned
keep the public safe.
to the Gang Suppression Unit. We can't wait to have him back with us, serving the citizens, protecting our communities.
That's about it. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense, thank you for watching.